amount of folks joining us, and I know there should be a few more others joining along the way, but don't want to waste your time. My name is Wyatt LeBeau. I'm a commercial salesman here at Greenspark, and also joined here by my coworker Doug Weishar, who's our director of commercial sales here. Both have some decent experience in the industry, and we're happy today to be chatting with everyone about commercial nonprofits and the direct pay for those tax credits as an incentive for solar. So go ahead and get started on just a little bit of background about Greenspark. We are a certified B Corporation, which we like to tout and brag about quite a bit. We have a triple bottom line, basically, of people, planet, profit. So we use our company for a force of good, and it's a high standard we hold ourselves to for to keep that status. So we're very proud of that, and it's part of our core business philosophy. So moving on here, just a little bit more about us. We work hard, we're growing, we're industry experts, voted a top workplace 2018 through 2022. We're growing pretty fast. We've got about 120 employees now, and one of the fastest growing companies in the Finger Lakes region. We're also industry experts. We've got all the certifications you'd be looking for with a solar company, a solar contractor. So we're part of Amicus, a buying cooperative. We're NAPCEP certified PV installers. We're accredited with NYSERDA, which is the New York State energy research development accreditation. So we're also accredited with Better Business Bureau, and a lot of our training comes from SIA as well. So really everything you look for in a solar contractor. Just a little bit about our current impact, which is also growing. This map here kind of shows you some of our installs, both residential and commercial. And on the right there, you'll see kind of the impact of all those installations. So, 200 megawatts of clean energy, which is probably a little more at this point. Quite a good revenue from our 20 plus years in the industry, and the carbon offsets of all of that work kind of shown there collectively. And I'll pass it over here to Doug to just talk a little bit about the incentives that are currently available as well.
Great, thanks, Wyatt. So as Wyatt mentioned, I'm the director of commercial sales here, and I've spent the last handful of years really focusing on the commercial space, and done quite a bit of work with both for-profit and nonprofit companies. We're going to kind of focus in on today on nonprofit and some of the changes that have come to light through the Inflation Reduction Act that make going solar even more suitable for nonprofit organizations. So historically, tax credits weren't something that nonprofits were able to take advantage of. Right now, the federal tax credit for solar projects sits at 30%. There's some potential to get an even higher tax credit, and we'll talk about that momentarily, but the base rate is 30%. And with the new direct pay option, that is something that nonprofits can take advantage of. There is depreciation available for solar projects like anything else that a company buys. However, nonprofit organizations are not going to be able to capture the depreciation. So we're just gonna skip that part of the discussion here. But no, for people are involved with other entities that may be for profit or are able to capture the depreciation. Bonus depreciation is available right now on solar projects, and it allows you to write down that asset by 80% in the first year, and then fully depreciate it within 5 years. Provided that you have the tax appetite to do that. So that's another bonus that is available for some customers. For all customers, again, the New York Sun program is still providing grants for solar projects, and they're basically, as they always have been, they're a first come, first serve product. They pay 25 cents a watt, which might not mean anything to you. That's a little bit of industry jargon, but that's how they're calculated. And so basically it's the size of your system determines what your grant amount is. And if you're interested in getting any kind of estimate done, we detail that, and almost all solar companies will detail out that what that incentive is for you, so you don't have to make that calculation. Okay, so we talked about some changes that came to light with regards to direct pay, and it's part of the Inflation Reduction Act that has this provision. But basically, nonprofit entities, municipal entities, states, some tribal entities will be eligible to take the tax credit as a direct pay, which basically means when you file your income taxes, you file a special document with your income taxes, and that will allow you to receive the what is scheduled to be a tax credit as a tax refund. So we're going to get into the details of direct pay on in just a moment here, but I did want to point out what I alluded to before when we started talking about the value of the tax credit, right? So the base rate for all solar projects is 30% investment tax credit, right? So 30% of whatever it costs to build and install your solar project would be eligible as that tax credit that has the direct pay option. Now, in some cases, you're able to get additional credits based on either where the project is or who the project is for, and those can come through a couple of different options. But there's energy communities that have been designated to get an additional 10%. So if your project lands in an area that the government decided was an energy community, you could get 40%. There's some low income adders, depending on who is getting the benefit of the solar project. Those can add another 10%, depending on how it's structured. Domestic production is one that soon likely everybody will receive, but we're still waiting for all the manufacturing to meet the requirements. So basically, if your project consists of enough components that were manufactured in the U.S., you qualify for an additional tax credit. And so those are stackable tax credits. So if you had a solar project that was qualified for domestic production and was in an energy community and on a brownfield, you could, in theory, get up to 60% of the project costs as a tax credit, and with that direct pay option. I don't think it's likely that many people will be getting 60%, but I think 40 and 50% is going to be pretty commonplace. Again, depending on who it's for and where it's going to be located. One other item I did want to mention while we're talking about this. This doesn't apply as much to the nonprofit space, but the tax credits through the Inflation Reduction Act are also now transferable, which they were not in the past. So you would have a one-time opportunity to sell your tax credit. However, it's likely, the regulations are still being put in place, but it's likely that you're going to be selling it for less than face value. So in the case where you have an option for a direct pay where you get 100% of the value, that's going to be the best bet here. But for some of the for-profit entities that may not have the tax appetite, that transferability might be an option for them. That market hadn't really existed in the past, so it's going to take some time for that to be put in place. But that is coming. That is coming soon. All right. So there's just a little bit of language here from the IRS that I just wanted to share. And before I dive into more detail on this, I wanted to point out a few things. So first of all, these tax credits and the direct pay option, this is all part of the, all the regulations are set by the IRS. Your solar installer does not control any of this, and we are not tax advisors, right? We are aware of the policies that may benefit our customers, but if you have specific questions about, whether your organization is going to qualify and exactly how the process would work within the context of your finances, that's a question for your tax advisor. That said, speaking a little more broadly and from a more overarching perspective, it's most all nonprofit entities should qualify for this, and having it be as a direct pay, there's not as much question as as a for-profit organization wondering how this tax credit is going to fit in with their tax situation. So it should be a little bit more streamlined, but As you see on your screen here, this is what the IRS says about the direct pay option in terms of who can monetize these credits and what potential nonprofits and state and political parts of that would qualify. I'm not going to get any deeper into this language because it's very boring, but all this information is available on the IRS's website. They have some Q&As on there. It's not the most exciting read in the world, but when you're potentially going to be able to take advantage of these tax credits, it gets a little bit more exciting. So if there's any specific questions, again, please contact your own tax advisor. If you want to just do some basic research, you can jump on the IRS's website and pull up all the documents that apply to this and take a look at them for yourself. All right, and so as the IRS has laid it out, there's just a couple steps that have to be taken in order to take advantage of the direct pay. The first one being, determining your eligibility, and we were just sort of talking about that, but it's, are you a nonprofit? Are you a government organization that's qualified on that list? So that should be pretty straightforward. The second step is determining your tax year, right? So the tax year is going to be the year that your solar project is going to be completed and interconnected with the utility and operating. And it's sort of important to note because we have a lot of projects that sometimes our construction is completed, but the utility work doesn't get done, and then they don't get commissioned and turned on until, like, say, January. If that's the case, even though most of the work was done in 1 year, it's the year that the system got turned on is the year that you take advantage of it. So you can work with your solar installer, and hopefully that's Greenspark, but you can work with your solar installer to figure that out and make sure that it'll be in the appropriate tax year. And that is the tax year that you will take advantage and file the paperwork. There is a precursor step here, and that is that for this direct pay option of the tax credit, you do have to complete a pre-filing registration with the IRS. I haven't actually done it, but I looked at the documents, and it seems pretty straightforward. Again, that's something that you would do in conjunction with your tax person in order to get that done. But it's just a little bit of information about yourself and the project. And once you do that, the IRS will provide you with a registration number that you'll need in order to submit your tax return at the end of the year. Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to mention on that is the payment that you're going to receive will be after your tax return is processed. So it'll be in the year following the year that it was completed, right? They usually do. If you file your taxes in, say, February or March, you'll probably have April or May, you'll be receiving that payment, for the work that was completed in the previous calendar year. Cool. I'm going to turn it back over to Wyatt, talk a little bit about financing in conjunction with these direct pay tax credits.
Cool. Thanks, Doug. So obviously, the direct pay can be seen as somewhat of a reimbursement. So you still will need some sort of way to fund the project itself. So we just wanted to touch on a little bit of some options for financing the project. We are currently working with a new loan provider, Orca Financials, who we've had some good luck with recently. They're a company that does commercial solar specific financing up to $1 million. So they have loan terms between 5-20 years, different varying rates, anywhere between in the 5-6 range up to like 10%. And we can work with you to find out what would work best for your specific project and financials. But they do offer some sort of program where you can kind of input some information and look to see what would make most sense for your specific example. And what we did here is just laid out a pretty simple example of a smaller project that would show the savings over a 30-year solar lifespan. So what we're looking at here is that orange line is a representation of your average monthly electricity bill without solar. So as you can see, there's a step up each year, representing electricity costs going up at around 2.5%, which is pretty normal. It's what we typically see. So that's essentially what you'd be paying over that lifespan without any solar. So this is a 0% down option. So you really wouldn't need any money down. And this specific option actually uses the tax incentive to lower your monthly cost of the loan itself, of the loan payments. So you can see at month 18 there, there's a big step down in your monthly payments. And instead of getting a direct pay for that solar system, this would actually be given to Orca to re-amortize and roll into the loan itself. So they would be taking that. Since like most nonprofits don't have a tax liability, instead of taking that direct pay, they're just rolling it into the loan itself to lower your monthly payment. You can see after this 10-year loan, you're basically getting even there, and then there's just a large amount of savings based on that. So this is representing a system that would offset 100% of your usage for the year. And in most cases, we can get there depending on the space available on the roof or land that our customers would own. But we can always work with you to show you exactly what your system would look like on this similar graph. We also just wanted to highlight a few different case studies here. And I know this one was my coworker Doug here, his project. So I'd like to just pass it over to him a little bit just to talk a little bit about this.
Sure. Great. Thanks, Wyatt. So yeah, just high level stuff to try and help everyone on the call understand, there's a whole bunch of different ways solar can be done, and there's a whole bunch of different folks that have already taken advantage of it. So this right here is just an example of one project we did for Heritage Christian. They did a 4.5 megawatt offsite array that it powers, I can't remember what the number is, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 to 300 different facilities, right? And so they're able to generate power in one place and then transfer those powers through like an accounting credit system with the utility company over to offset the bills of all their locations. A different way to do this might have been to to put those on top of each individual building, but there's sometimes can be some economies of scale and cost savings to building it all as one and doing it as an offsite. But again, there's a ton of different ways to do these, and we can figure out what might work best for you and for your organization. Another example here, this is the Rochester Christian Reformed Church. They did a rooftop install, and if I remember correctly, it covers about 50% of the electrical load of in the entire church and daycare that's there. It's kind of hard to see, but the solar is on the back side of the building, and on the roof that juts out as far north on that picture as you can see towards the baseball field. That was very intentional. They were very concerned. They didn't want the solar to be visible from the road or detract from the aesthetics of their property. Well, this type of solar array doesn't really generally stand out because it's fairly low mounted to the roof. We found a solution that worked real well for them and accomplished their goals. Depending on your site, you can't always keep it completely hidden, but you can work to find ways to sort of aesthetically make it as pleasing as possible. All right, here's another example of a rooftop that we did for Cornell. These are the new campus expansion dormitories that they put in over the last couple of years, and we basically just covered their roof in solar panels on each one of the buildings. You can sort of see it's a tough angle to see, but there's a lot of equipment on these low-rise building rooftops. There's rooftop heating and cooling units, drains, vents, etc. So we just work around them, right? And their goal was to get as much solar as possible to offset as much of their footprint as possible. Wasn't really as much for them about dollar savings as it was about reducing their actual footprint. and we were able to help them accomplish that. I did want to point out on this one, and maybe Heritage Christian also, that these were structured a little bit differently through what's called a power purchase agreement. Power purchase agreements are still available for nonprofits. Historically, they were sort of the only financing option because the tax credits weren't able to be taken advantage of directly. So just wanted everyone to know that PPAs are still available, but they're not, from a financial perspective, they're not usually the most advantageous option. But if you don't want to own your solar, you just want to receive the credits for it, you can work with a company such as ours to set up a power purchase agreement where we take care of owning, maintaining, insuring the solar array, and then the customer is simply responsible for buying that power, usually at a slight discount. So they are saving a little bit of money. Okay, Push Buffalo. This is a pretty cool project. It's very unique in that it's very urban, and it's on a number of different buildings and a number of different building types. And so this is an affordable housing project right in the city of Buffalo, where they basically most of it's new build, some of it is rehab, but they're basically they took two city blocks and they're revamping them with as much affordable housing as they can. I think for this portion of the project that we're looking at, it was 13 different homes that were going to be installed, and some of them are single family, some of them are two family, some of them are multi-family homes. But it's a really cool way to get solar in there. And the particular approach here was we want to reduce our operating costs at these facilities as much as possible so that we can keep it as affordable as possible for the folks that need that the most. And so that project is partially complete, but it's as all new construction is these days. It was delayed a little bit, and so it's still ongoing, and we'll have that wrapped up in the next couple of weeks. Okay. I think that brings us to sort of the Q&A of our section of our presentation. And so feel free to jump in the chat with any questions that you might have. We're happy to answer them. I've got one here that was asked regarding what if you don't file a tax return as a nonprofit? Would you be able to take advantage of this? And my answer is I believe so. But again, that's a question for your tax advisor. Most tax exempt entities do file an annual nonprofit tax filing, but I know some like religious organizations aren't required to. And so you would have to in order to take advantage of the direct pay, but the specifics of how that's handled, I haven't encountered yet. So I don't want to steer anybody wrong. I would suspect there's some guidance on the IRS's website, or your tax advisor could probably answer that for your specific situation. But for most people that are already filing one, it's just your normal filing plus the additional documents that are required for the direct pay portion. See if there's any other questions in here. So the next question was, what IRS form is required to be filed to receive the incentive? It depends on which part you're asking. So there's a pre-registration document that needs to be filled out, and then there's an actual form that needs to be filed with your income taxes. And let's see if I have the form number handy here. Let's see, it's not stated on this. So I don't have the form number handy here, but I'd be happy to. Oh, sorry, form 3800 is the form number that you'll need to file with your taxes, including that registration number that you do in advance of your tax filing. Okay. Let's see other questions that we have in here. So we have one here about what. So just asking for some specific clarification on where on the IRS's website you can get more information about the tax credits and the that are eligible for this direct pay. And so there's a whole bunch of different places on the IRS's website where you can get this information. But if you go to irs.gov/clean energy, it sort of puts all the clean energy stuff in one spot. And then you can sort of pick through there and look at, different publications or Q&As that might be helpful for you. I was looking at the Q&A over the last couple of days, and it's expanded quite a bit, right? It used to just have 1 or 2 questions, and now there's like, I don't know, 50 questions on there that have been answered specific to, what if I had a tax situation where I wanted to apply that type of direct pay to previous tax years? Is that possible? In this case, I know the answer, even though I'm not an IRS person, but no, you can't, because that was part of what the Inflation Reduction Act said, is that they drew a line in the sand. They said effective January 1, 23, moving forward, these things will apply. So, so I would recommend everybody they check out that website. If you're interested in learning a little bit more information or want to get some specifics.
Also have a question here about just getting a quote started or a site visit. So yeah, we'll be sending out a follow-up email after this presentation and reaching out to everyone directly just to kind of see if you have any follow-up questions, or if you did want to move forward with looking into solar for your facilities or your organization. And you can work with Doug or I directly. We'd both be able to kind of set up the next steps. What we typically do is look at a full view of either one building or collectively your whole organization's electricity usage. So we typically would ask for some information regarding that, how much you spend, what utility service you're on, how many kilowatt hours you're using each year. And then we could really come up with a size system needed to offset that. But we'd also want to know a little bit more about your needs and your plan. If you're just looking to offset a certain portion of your usage, or if you're looking to get the largest possible size system to offset everything, to really get an accurate idea of what size system you need to kind of give you pricing on that. But yeah, as far as a site visit, obviously we would need to look at some electrical. What's going on electrically at your facilities, or if we're doing an offsite project, just talk a little bit about maybe what kind of land you have available to build on, and if it's feasible to put a system on that property. So we could certainly provide you some pricing based on that information, but we typically would just ask for a little bit of that information first to get us started, put us in the right direction.
Yeah, and I would recommend we do our best to value engineer these systems based around what you and your organization's goals are, right? So if in that preliminary meeting where we're sort of going over what you might be thinking about doing and how you might be interested in doing it, and collecting some bills and sort of starting to put things together before we just give you a price on something, to really understand what's important. Like we talked about in the one situation with the church where they were very concerned about it from a visual perspective. Getting that information to us, or if there's certain buildings you don't want to use or you do want to use. Most of my customers ask me, actually, they want it to be very visible, and they ask me, how can we make sure that our customers in the community that we serve know that we're taking part in this endeavor. So providing as much of that information to us as possible during that preliminary meeting is really helpful for us, right? Like, so this is just one of the incentives that we're aware of. But when taking into account what you want to do and how you want to do it, and then also looking at all the incentives that are out there for the solar projects and how they apply, like sometimes tweaking that a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller provides you with the best bottom line, from a financial perspective on the project, which usually makes them more tenable, right? And so at least we can provide you that option. It doesn't mean that you have to follow our recommendation. We're here to build you what you want. But if we can find a way to sort of maximize the incentives to minimize the cost and give the biggest return back to the organization so they can put those dollars to work on their mission, That's really what we would like to do. Okay, I don't see anything else sitting in the question room. We're a couple minutes early from being done, but we have 10 minutes or so left. So we're happy to answer any more questions if anybody has anything specifically. Or if you don't, I don't want to tie you up. I'm sure you have a busy day to get to. So we'll hang out here for a few moments and see if any other questions roll in. But if you've gotten what you need here, feel free to go ahead and jump off. Again, Wyatt and I are both available for consultation and estimates. If you're interested, feel free to reach out, phone, email, whatever works best for you.
Great. Well, not seeing any more questions here, so we'll leave you guys to it. But hopefully we'll chat with everyone here soon. And thanks everyone for attending.
Have a nice day.